occasion, allegedly arranging for a visiting Queen's Park side to be locked out of the dressing room. Kelly as captain had the ability to inspire and encourage, to bring the best out of others, to organise tactically to perfection, and most importantly, to lead by example. He was a major sporting star, enjoying a level of celebrity in Victorian Scotland comparable to any other public figure. Willie Brown was just an ordinary East Ender. He lived alone in a single end in Orr Street near St Mary's, still lit by gas in the 1960s. He was a fervent Celtic supporter, unfailingly making the pilgrimage to paradise for every game from 18 to first 11. His regular stance was beside the old tunnel, and from there he saw the greats that passed that way, and many more, of course, who passed into obscurity. I was privileged to know Willie, and when I think of him, I recall a line from an old revivalist hymn. Tell me the old story. Tell me the old story. For I was enthralled by his Celtic tales from long ago, some drawn from his own recollection, but many from the folk memory of the East End Celtic supporting community. Europe may have been divided by an invisible iron curtain. Kennedy and Castro toe-to-toe over Cuba, the Mersey beat conquering the world. But for me, it was the mighty atom, Patsy Gallagher. Miracles from the Prince of Goalkeepers, the great John Thompson. And the human torpedo, Jimmy McGrory, horizontal, bulleting yet another header into the opposition net. But Willie was different from those who stood around him. He had worn the colours. He had scored a goal in that pitch, which for most could only ever be a field of dreams. And it was from this old Celt that I first heard the story of the 1892 Cup-winning team. Of how, on the 9th of April that year, Captain James Kelly and a group of local heroes had brought the Scottish Cup back to the Calton to rest for the very first time in the newly built paradise. The old man's account was vivid, passionate and very accurate, for the East End indeed was in carnival mood, all a perfect turmoil, thronging, singing, cheering joyful crowds, brass bands playing songs of victory. Willie often retold a favourite anecdote, a memory handed down from his parents, of Celtic captain James Kelly presenting Johnny Campbell, the two-goal hero of the final, trophy held aloft, to receive the adulation of the crowd who had gathered outside St Mary's Hall. Just a nice bit of early public relations, you might think, but it was much more significant than that. For in that moment, James Kelly was reaffirming and acknowledging that unshakable Celtic bond that exists between those who watch and those who play. A unique relationship that ensures that our club will indeed never walk alone and always have the inspirational backing of an amazing support as it continues to pursue the glory and the dream. The book of Proverbs tells us that where there is no vision, the people perish. And our club has endured from Maley to Rogers, from James Kelly to Brown, because that vision of the founding fathers has been conveyed by successive managers and captains to our players. James Kelly was the first in that distinguished series, and indeed, without his iconic leadership, there may indeed have been no Celtic. And what is now one of the world's great clubs would be as distant as a memory as long forgotten Emeralds, Shamrocks, Erins and Emmets. James Kelly is indeed a Celtic great, a greatness determined by his outstanding ability and achievement, his lifelong service as player, director and chairman, his iconic and trophy-winning captaincy. James Kelly just didn't play for the Celtic, he lived for the club. It became a way of life. From that very first day against Rangers Swifts, he embraced and committed himself to the Celtic cause. His involvement from the beginning was a major factor in the very survival of the club. He stepped into the unknown, he lived a dream, and he helped make it become a reality. Today gathered here, we remember prayerfully and with respect our first captain, James Kelly. We recall rightly too that Victorian band of brothers who wore the green with such distinction and skill in that groundbreaking Scottish Cup winning side. And we cherish too the memory of those dear happy ghosts whose names and traditions we inherit, cheered the victorious Celts to the echo. The memory is evergreen, the achievement undiminished by time. A wonderful Celtic 11, inspirationally led by Kelly. Like our newly crowned champions, they played with professionalism, with pride, dignity, and a certain style of play. With the poet Yeats, we murmur name upon name in their honour. In the Celtic narrative, their glory never fades. They are always the bold Bahoys of '92, the history boys, Kelly's heroes, a legendary and very grand old team to play for.